And good afternoon and welcome to the Sailplane Grand Prix on day 4 here in sunny Santiago, and it really is sunny today, which is good news. Yesterday's weather didn't behave itself and unfortunately we were unable to get the task in, even though we did get some of the pilots flying. It wasn't safe, so the decision was made to can it for yesterday, knowing the weather was going to be good today and for the rest of the week. The Met man, or Met lady actually I should say, tells we should have climbs to 3,000 or 3,200 meters, and hopefully 3 to 4 meters in strength. Nice and clear, we've got a big task, 305 kilometers today, starting around 3 o'clock local time here, and we'll give you the best coverage we can. A little bit more information today. The Pope's in town. Unfortunately, he can't make it to the grid today, but he did say he'd try and catch up with the highlights later. So what we'll do, as we've got some competitors here, is we'll go and have a chat with them. So
he vanished in the Soviet gulags, so I think I feel that I can fly in Chile and enjoy the life because of his work done. Yeah, so I feel a lot of respect. His name is Antanas Ragauskas. That's the letters Alfa Romeo.
Okay, so that's okay. We've got 19 gliders on the grid here, and we should have 20. And we've had a number of people asking us about Klaus Kalman, who should have been here competing with us, but unfortunately he had a...
We have to circle and we have to find good lifts, and we have to select, well, to take the quick thermals on the ridge, or rather to climb high and then take the second system. I have 2 plans and I will decide in the air.
That with squeeze a word in there. Hi Didier, how are you doing today?
Hello Sean.
So, we're here in the Andes. How does that differ from your home, the Alps?
Oh, it's very different. The air masses and the lifts are much more turbulent. That's one very important thing. So, circling, or when you are just flying along the ridges, you have to be very concentrated all the time. So, this part of the east part of the task might be tricky.
So you're using a map here to visualize this. Have you looked at the computer? Do you use CU for that as well?
I like to use the map, yes, but not in flight, before the flight.
Yeah.
During the flight, I don't. I have it with me. Don't look at it.
It's in your head then?
Yeah, and in the instruments, of course, yes. Yeah.
Good. Okay, are we going to see you on the podium today?
Oh, would be marvelous. Yeah. I hope so, yeah. With my old glider.
It's not that old, and it's certainly not that slow. Well done, Didier. Thank you, and hopefully we'll catch up later on.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Nice New Zealand accent. Well, actually, it's quite English, your accent.
I wouldn't have said that myself, but
yeah, go on, put a bit of more of a twang into it.
yeah, g'day.
G'day.
That's probably Australian, actually.
It's probably more Australian.
Yeah, kia ora.
Kia ora.
That's a little bit of Kiwi.
Yeah. So where's home?
Home for me is Tauranga, and I fly out of the Tauranga Gliding Club, and that's in the Bay of Plenty, on the eastern side of the North Island, about 2.5 hours drive south of Auckland.
And there's many in the club there?
We've got a membership of about 60. With about 30 active pilots, so it's only a small club, but it's quite a well-to-do club from past investments that the club's made. So we've got a good fleet of gliders and a core keen group of pilots. So yeah, it's good. It's very close to home, and that's what's convenient to me.
Yeah. Well, that's good news. Yeah. You haven't been flying for very long, have you?
Well, I've been flying for a while, but in competitions, no. I've only seriously been contemplating, entering competitions for the last 2 to 3 years, and really only myself that I'm actually here. I mean, I've only got 600 hours flying time. I'm competing and flying with guys that have got 5,000 hours or so. So I'm way behind the the 8 ball as far as experience goes. But it's fun flying with these guys, and you just learn stuff every day. And I'm just hoping that it all sinks in and I can sort of take advantage of some of the stuff I've learned.
That's fantastic. And you've had a good look at the task today, 305 kilometres.
Yes, I've studied it as best I can. I've sought a little bit of external advice from people who know a bit better than me. For me, I tend to push on too quickly. I'm just a little bit keen to get to the next turn point. I think the key for me today is to stay high. yeah, I think if you get low in the second and third turn points, I think that's really going to slow you down. So that's the very simple strategy today. Stay high, stay safe, and hopefully it'll work out.
And fly fast.
Fly as fast as I can.
Excellent, great.
All right.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you back here later.
Thanks very much.
Right, is there anybody else we can grab a quick word with? Good grief, Sebastian Carwar's here. It's a little bit early for him to be on the grid. He's a bit like Lewis Hamilton. He doesn't come to the grid until the last minute. So we'll see if we can have a quick chat. Sebastian, do you have a moment for us?
Yes,
Are you just putting the task in?
yes, that's true.
And what do you think of the task today?
There's a lot of question marks. If we can fly it in a high altitude or a lower altitude. But the problem is if we fly it all at high altitude, then we will have too much energy for the last final legs, and it's about 1,000 meters too high. So I don't know. Maybe if the weather is very strong, we will fly at high altitude. But if we will not find very good thermals in the critical moment, we will fly around.
So we're going to see you on the podium today.
I would like to, but never know. This is so many tricks today that till the last moment you will not know who is the winner, because even if you lead and you choose your own way today, there will be possibility for other pilots to overtake you, because they would probably fly in the high mountains and they will be lucky to get the 5-meter thermal, and they will catch you. Yeah.
So will you be in the high mountains or will you go the low route?
I think upway we will fly the low road, then we will pass Animita, and then we will probably fly again around.
Okay.
So does it comply what others said?
Everybody said something different so far. I think it all really depends on the altitude we can get with the weather we have, and how high the cloud base will be will decide where we go.
Yeah, that's true. But the cloud base seems to be very high today, and 4,200 meters at least, and this is enough. But the question is if we can climb quickly. If we will be climbing well, then we will probably fly straight over the mountains, over the passes.
Well, fantastic. Thank you.
I'm taking my camera today with me, so it's
great. Well, let us have the pictures later. Great. Have a good day. Right, well that's pretty much it from the grids. They're halfway through launching, and what we're going to do is walk back to the commentary box and we'll try and bring you the race live. So look forward to seeing you later. Good afternoon and welcome to the Sailplane Grand Prix. We are now live. The grid walk was recorded a little earlier on, but we thought you might want to hear from some of the competitors. We have everybody launched now, and we've even got people up over 5,000 meters, so it's turning into a much better day than we thought. We're here live in Chile, in Santiago, as you can see from the picture, and Benji will just zoom in to give you an idea of where we're flying to today. Just walk you around the task. From the start line, the green banner in the bottom of the screen there, they're going to head north, and that's a distance of 97 kilometers to our first turn point, and from there they go back east into the higher mountains to turn point 2. One of the things we were worried about is whether or not they were going to be able to climb high enough to get over this set of ridges here, and they would have to go round. But looking at the heights they're getting at the moment, they should be able to climb high and go straight into turn point 2, which crosses the Aconcagua Valley. From there, this turn point 2 is just over a lake, a very blue lake, which is the mine water from an active mine on the other side of the mountain, apparently. And from there they head back north again. It's just a short leg of 26 kilometers to La Torre, and from there hopefully they'll be high enough to start the run home. And from 10.3 down to 10.4 is 62 kilometers, heading south, crossing the valley behind us here in Vitacura, over to the turn point there. Let me just see, turn point 4, yeah, 2,000 meters high. And from that point, they then head back north again, crossing the valley, through the checkpoint, and then back to the finish line. We're expecting them to be on final glide at turn point 4. In fact, if they get really high, turn point 3 would be the point they'll be running home from. We had a few quality problems earlier on. Sorry about that. The internet here has been really, really good. Perhaps it's because the Pope's in town today. Lots of people using the internet. Anyway, we'll. Looks like it's going okay at the moment. Let us know. You can give us some feedback through the live chat in the YouTube, and we're reading that. Well, certainly all the clean ones anyway. And we'll pass on any information any questions you have. We'll do our best to try and answer them. Technical questions will be answered by text, and any of the flying questions we'll try and answer that through the commentary. Weather today, much better than yesterday. Yesterday was quite disappointing. It was cloud was on the deck when we got up in the morning, and it took forever to get to flying height. We did try and make an attempt to get a race in, but it was all too late. So for safety reasons, they canned it. Today, this task is 305 kilometers. The forecast was fairly pessimistic this morning, saying that we'd only get to 2,200, maybe 2,800 meters, but we've already seen competitors up to 5,000 meters. So we're pretty sure the weather's going to be fine today. Another thing we've got going on today, we've got a commentator from Sunday, Alex. He's flying today in his Nimbus 4, and we're going to try getting a phone call from him so he can tell us what the weather conditions are like at the various different turn points. So we're hoping that will work. So we've got 13 minutes and 35 seconds or so to go. All the competitors are up. What's the area that they're in? Los Andes, I believe, is where they are right now, and Lagunas, which is a good place to climb. Quite a long way from the start line, but they'll work their way back in time for the start. Just a reminder about the rules. They need to only turn left from 5 minutes before the start, and they need to be behind the line or its extensions with 1 minute to go. Start height today, I'll just see if I can find that for you. Maximum altitude is 2,400 meters for the start line, and the start speed a maximum of 170 kilometers an hour. So they'll need to come down from their current altitude, make their way back towards the start line and get behind it, and then they'll run back to roughly where you see them climbing now before they make their way up the first leg. Looks like the internet problems have been solved. We've got a couple of comments saying the display's good and the audio's okay, so we hope that's true. Keep your comments coming, that helps us. So who are we looking at right now? So Sebastian Nagel, who was our day one winner, or race one winner, currently at 4,300 meters, just keeping cool, getting himself ready, coming back towards the rest of the group, who are just holding height, just getting themselves ready. 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Yeah, nobody doing anything particularly special, just keeping themselves ready behind the line. A few more viewers joining us now, 347 just ticking up. The coverage of race one, we managed to get to 7,500 viewers at one stage, so that's good news. Well, it's good for our sport anyway. Lots of people watching.
it would be interesting to hear from anybody who's not a glider pilot. Let us know what you like about it, what we could tell you about gliding. Yeah, just counting down the time, just checking everything here. 10 minutes and 35 seconds to go. Looks like the Giorgio Galetto fan club's joined in. That's great news. We've heard from all over the world, actually, people watching, really enjoyed the first day's racing. Just a shame we couldn't race yesterday. What we'll try and do, Brian's just stepped back in the office and give us an update on what's happening, Brian.
Well, you can see more than I can, Sean. The problem from the airfield here is we have a mountain between us and where everybody is. So we have to come and listen to you to find out what's going on. But the countdown started for the start line opening. We've got, 10 minutes to go, just a little bit less. And we're looking forward to a really fantastic race. These guys are going to have a lot of fun getting rid of 2,500 meters to come down and start. That's going to be tactically quite interesting to see how they handle it.
Yep. Well, we'll be watching with that. And we're joined this afternoon by Mario Reyes, who used to be, I believe you were the chairman of the club here at one stage, Mario.
Yes, that was a long time ago. Hi, everybody.
Yes. Yeah. You say a long time ago, wasn't it? When we were here last time, 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, that was in the first qualifying Grand Prix.
Yeah. Good. And you know these mountains quite well. You're a local pilot.
Yes, we have been flying a lot for many years. I think that the task today is going to be very tricky. I have the feeling that some people were going to go north on the lower levels, and some others will spend some time getting on the second system and going very high.
Yeah, when you say the second system, there are sort of 2 or 3 levels here of mountains, and do you mean the second tier of mountains?
I mean, once you go over the inversion, which usually are about 4,000 meters, and then you get a second system, which is well managed by northwest wind and instead of southwest wind.
Yeah, we're hoping that we may have Alex live, our eye in the sky. Alex, can you tell us what's happening with the weather?
Yeah, we are here at Los Españoles. That is the ridge that is to the northeast of the start line. We are flying at 3,500 meters. There are a few cumulus around, but it's a very up days around here is about 3,700, 3,800 meters. So the ridges are clear. It's a beautiful day. We have very good visibility, long distance visibility. We see all the gliders now gaggling around the start line to get it prepared. We just saw Papa north of the start line heading towards it. There are a few minutes left. So it's going to be an interesting day. Thermals are very good. We've been thermaling 2.5, 3.5 meters average with gusts of 5 meters per second. So there is a good chance these guys will do a flight on the higher ridges. And I will give you a call in a while after the start to see what they will be doing, if they go the high route north or if they stay low and go high afterwards for the second and third turn point.
That's fantastic, Alex. Thank you very much indeed for the feedback, and we'll chat to you later as they're halfway up the first leg.
Okay, I'll be following these guys from a higher level, so a signal you to go.
Thanks, Alex.
Talk to you in a while, Sean. Bye. Say hi.
So that experiment seems to have worked, and we'll try that again a little later. As we're now watching the competitors start to come back towards the start line with 6 minutes and 15 seconds to go. And we had a question about wing loading and weight for the gliders. For this competition, they're flying a maximum wing loading of 52 kilograms per square meter. So that's a little bit less than the maximum wing loading for most of the gliders. And that's really for two things. One is just a little bit of extra safety, and to make the gliders a little bit more responsive, certainly flying in the mountains.
Yes, I think that it's also make most of the competitors on the same situation. There are no handicap, so then all of them are at the same wing loading, more or less the same glider, and then the whole problem is left to the person, to the pilot, not to the glider.
Yeah, that's good. There's just one way of trying to equalize everything.
That's right, yeah.
They're all in very similar gliders. They're all 18-meter class gliders, and the wing loading just helps to just try and equalize everything up. As we watch the competitors coming back now down towards the start line, 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go, they're now within the 5-minute window where they can only turn left, and the reason for that is really safety. If you had gliders turning both left and right in a confined space, it can be a bit tricky. This is a non-contact sport. We like to keep it a non-contact sport, so that's why we asked them to turn left in the last 5 minutes. What they're now doing is just descending to get down to the maximum start height, which today is 2,400 meters, and to get behind the start line. They need be behind the start line with 1 minute to go, or its extensions. So if you can imagine, you see the line in front of you, the green line. If you extended that line both left and right, they need to be behind that with 1 minute to go. So the tactics now really are about trying to get manage your energy, reduce your altitude, and keep your speed down. Not the easiest thing to do. And they'll turn left and then run through the line, and probably, we believe, head slightly right of the first track to get to the high mountains you can see on the right hand side of the screen. Yeah. Just seeing Thomas in Zulu Zulu, one of our local pilots, just getting himself behind the start line, wants to make sure he's in the right place. He's still at 3,000 meters, so he's got 600 meters to lose in altitude and still maintain his height. And they'll be doing that by, they use air brakes or spoilers on the wings just to reduce the efficiency of the wing, which will help them descend to get to the right height.
Yeah, what's really interesting is how difficult this is. If you've never flown in a situation where you're trying to get rid of 2,000 meters, to end up in a specific point at exactly the right height and not faster than 170 kilometers an hour, you wouldn't understand how difficult this is. Because there's a great risk that you slightly overdo it and then you end up starting too low. And if you just don't quite get rid of enough energy, you get a penalty. And it's quite difficult to manage. Everybody wants to get across the line quickly, and what we'll probably see is they'll all start to circle together and leave the circle and stream in together.
Yeah, we're talking about penalties. Actually, it's very severe. If you're early, your time penalty is 10 times the number of seconds you're over the line.
And the reason for that is that somebody crossing the line a few seconds early, it's much too dangerous to turn back. If you turn back, you get no start. It's a very big penalty because you cannot turn back in front of the gliders behind you. So it's actually better to start a few seconds late, even 20 seconds late would be okay at the right speed, than to try to get it absolutely on the nail at the right height.
And we've now got to get everybody behind the line with 1 minute to go, and it looks like John Gatfield in Yankee Oscar just going to make it in time. Perhaps we can have an overhead view there, Benji, just to see where they are relative to the line rather than this this view. Yeah, so we've got everybody now behind the line with 1 minute to go and its extension, so no penalties there. That's good. And now you can see everybody turning left here and making their way towards the line, or they may do one more turn, and all coming down in altitude. Tom Kelly's got plenty of height to lose. 3,000 metres is that now. He's got 600 metres to lose.
I think Tom won't mind being at the back. I think he's new to this sort of flying. He's new to these mountains, and I think he'll be very happy not to be mixed up in the middle of this and to be sitting above and behind a little way.
Yep. 30 seconds to go now. We should see the competitors start to peel off from this circle that they're in at the moment. Yes, and we can see them running now towards the line, just controlling their speed and their altitude. Don't forget the maximum altitude is 2,400 meters. So Thomas Gostner there, 2,430. Just
he's got the right speed. He's got a good speed. It's like a sailing start. You don't want to cross the line too early or too fast. You have to go back again.
Yeah, and the gate's now open. So nobody too early. That's good news. We just need to check the altitudes. We're not real-time scoring at the moment, but we hope for the next final we'll have real-time scoring. Each of the gliders carry a flight recorder, and we download that at the end of the race just to check the altitude.
It's very, very exciting now for the guys at the back, because they're watching and waiting to see what the front runners are going to do. We can see that Werner, who led out yesterday and was very pushy and got out in front, he looks like he doesn't care too much about what everybody else is doing.
Yes, just pointing out on the right-hand side is Thomas, one of our local pilots. We feel that with his knowledge, he'll try and bring the fleet of gliders to the right. Over the higher ground, you can see top middle of your picture.
Papa Lima got a good start today. We're pleased about that. He didn't get up to start on the first race day, but he's with the others and he's sitting back. I suspect that he's going to be happy to be high and behind in the first part of this race and wait and watch and see what happens. There's not much point in pushing out too hard ahead yet, because you're just marking the route for the others. But we expect them to stream out until they get 2 or 3 kilometers apart, as the pilot technique starts to show and start to use the energy better. The pilots with a greater ability will just start to gain a few meters each time.
So we've had one question here, Brian. Perhaps you can help us with this. Who's the favourite today, do you think?
Well, I mean, on paper, it's got to be Sebastian Kawa every time. But we've seen Sebastian Krummel, Sebastian Nagel, he's flying really well. Werner Moser, he's flying really well. Thomas could be a bit of a surprise. Thomas is really experienced, but he tends to make a big mistake at some time in the competition. So it could be, I think it's between sort of 3 or 4 at the front. My money's on Lucas, though. I think Lucas could come up from behind. I think Lucas could push forward. And I think Sebastian Nagli is flying with enough courage and enough panache to really have a good day today, if he doesn't get himself into a silly situation.
Quick question for Mario. Where they're now flying, would you expect them to stop, or do you think they'll push on from here?
Well, I think that they're going to go to the area called Laboratorio. We have in front a signal there, what we call the Maraco, and the Laboratorio is on the right side here. And this is an area where you have to make a decision, either to go straight to Maraco or to turn around in the Laboratorio.
That's this area we can see. They're just marking it with the mouse.
That's right, yes.
Now. In fact, you can just see the whole of the fleet turning towards
They're turning inside. Laboratorio is a very good area with strong thermals, and that might be the gate, the energy to go into the Españoles, if you want to go on the high route.
And this is the second level you were talking about.
That's
earlier,
right, yes.
And that's further east and higher.
That's the Laboratorio, the area, the Españoles, that area.
Yeah, the area being marked by the mouse at the top of the screen.
That's right, yes.
If they can climb up to there, what sort of altitude will they be getting to if they?
Well,
they
you
go
can
there?
get up to there to 3,600
Meters.
meters.
Yep.
That's right, and from there to go into the highest part.
Okay, so we'll watch them fly over the laboratory, and if they stop and climb, then we think they might go right, and if they don't find anything, they'll go on left. Looks like Thomas is looking for the top of the spine. They're both Thomas Gostner and Andres as well, one of the other local pilots.
That area that Thomas is turning, there is an area of thermals, and on the other hand we have the Gulf November, which is Andres, and he's going into the higher part of the laboratory. And
looks like Thomas Gostner didn't get the climb he was expecting.
He's
trying to figure
looking
it out.
for.
Meanwhile, the rest of the group have pushed on to the other side, and they are now climbing. So Thilo, there I can see, is just climbing 4 or 5 meters in his pull-up. Werner Arman 4 meters per second.
Yeah, Thomas made the turn because he wanted to attract the others, I think, into that area, but it didn't work. They weren't fooled by that. One turn is nearly a kilometer. So if he makes a turn here and the other guys don't turn, he's going to be nearly a kilometer behind. And it takes a lot of catching up again. Here he comes. He's seeing them now. But of course, it's absolute mayhem in there. They're all about the same height. They're all turning together. They've got a mountain on one side. Everybody needs to take a lot of care in this situation so that they can focus on finding the thermal and not bumping into each other.
Yep. And one of the things discussed at briefing today was for the first 20 kilometers of the race we'd be turning left, and we can indeed see them all turning left. So they were clearly listening, Brian.
To the right, we should see what's going on with Andres.
Yes, Andres is ploughing a
He's
lonely
the only
furrow
one,
on his
yeah.
own.
And he's trying to get something in that area. The area where they're flying now is what we call the north part of the laboratory.
Good climb rates now.
That's a lower area, and if you get some height there, it might give you the idea either to go on the lower level, going to the Maraco, instead of spending some time to go into the higher mountain.
One of the other things to think about here is what's actually happening with the wind. We've got a westerly or northwesterly wind. At altitude, we're expecting something like 15 to 20 knots, and in the lower levels, 10 to 15 knots. So you can just see the this thermal here just bending over towards the east as the wind influences what's happening with this thermal.
In the area of Españoles, the northwesterly wind usually is above 2,800 meters, where you can use that wind to fly the ridge of the Españoles. And that's when you go over the second system.
So
I think that some people from here, if they get a good altitude, they will go into the Españoles.
And we've got our first lever. That's Thilo, who's just pushed off at 2,500 meters.
The Españoles is the big ridge that you can see now behind to the right, the top right corner of the screen. It looks really, really inviting, but it's going a long way off track. It takes you a long way to the east, and unless you get really, really good energy along there, you're making a big deviation, and when you come off the end of that ridge, you've got a long way to the next place to find a climb. So if it doesn't work, it's a very big gamble.
No, not really. The Españoles is exactly north to south. So you don't go, you move a bit to the east, but then the ridge is north to south.
The rest of the group have stopped their climb and they're now just trying to chase down Thilo. They won't want anybody to get away. so they've got to try and stay together, and that almost forces their hand when one person like that leaves. Looks like we've got a incoming from.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex. How are we doing?
Hi. I'm not sure if I'm live. Is that okay?
We're just trying to get some information from Alex, who's our eye in the sky. Where are you, Alex? Tell us what's happening.
Okay. Most of the pack took the route outside on the valley, the westerly lower route, and we are at 3,200 meters flying along Españoles with just one glider below us. The visibility is great, and the ridges are clear of the clouds. I just sent Brian a few pictures through his.
Yeah, it looks like we've lost Alex, but great to have a bit of insight into what's actually happening out the window. We're in a dark classroom here, so we don't actually see what's out the window.
Where are the others on the right side?
We'll just try and zoom out to see what happened to some of the others, and it looks like Andres is trying to get to this higher eastern ridge, and also Thomas Gostner, but not climbing as fast as the others have been climbing. The rest of the group taking the lower route on the left-hand side of the track, and this is this area we're coming to now.
Morocco.
The Morocco.
That's here in Morocco.
Another good place to climb. And we've got Alex back again now. Hi, Alex.
Okay, I think I just got lost when I was telling that the wind at this altitude, 3,300 meters, is 35 kilometers from the north-northwest. So there's actually on the ridges, we actually have a little bit of wave, actually. Some of the guiders, you can saw them, they were pretty high, 4,300 meters. And that was basically wave condition. So it's going to be interesting if they come back from the north and they stay high. They would definitely have the chance to take the high route because all the high ridges are out of the clouds and clear of clouds. Okay. So check the pictures on the WhatsApp and you have a good view of what it looks like. I will send a picture now of the area of Lagunas and Lagunas Valley where all these guys will be flying in now, and we'll be meeting them at Lagunas. We'll wait for them at Lagunas and follow them to the north, and we'll give you a call again.
Yeah, unfortunately we can't share the pictures you've got, Alex, but we'll work on that for another day. But thanks for that. What's the cloud base, did you say?
We are right now at the end of the ridge of Españoles. We are at 3,500 meters, and the clouds in front of us are another 800 to 1,000 meters higher than us. So cloud base is at least 4,000 to 4,200 meters high. So the ridges are clear of clouds and very good conditions. It's really fun to fly.
Fantastic, Alex. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for that, Alex. Yeah.
Okay, we call you in a while as soon as we have signal again. Bye-bye.
Yes, that's just one of our experiments for today, is seeing if we could talk to Alex, who's currently 3,300 meters to the east of the track that you're looking at. The fleet are pretty much stuck
We
together.
just see
Just
what's going on with Thomas Gostner and Andres. They were left behind. They are patiently climbing up to 2,700 meters, and that will give them the chance to go into the ridges from where Alex was calling, that area. Once you get there and you get the good lift, and then you can go much faster, and probably the same time that you expended here to climb up is going to be the same time for the 1-star in the whole group in front of the race.
Yeah, it looks like Thomas has got to 2,700 meters and is now running along the top of that ridge on the east side there. And we'll see, this will be interesting actually to find out who gets there first.
Who's going to be the one?
Yeah. what we ought to do is also introduce you to Alfonso Diaz, who's our task setter here. Good afternoon, Alfonso. How are you?
Just fine, thank you.
Good. So you've been setting tasks here for quite some time, or puzzles as the locals like to call them. So tell us a little bit about this puzzle that you've set them today. What are the tricky bits?
Well, when I set up the task, I always think in several things at the same time. First is the broadcasting of the task, and the technical difficulties of the task, and also the different strategies that they can take from one point to the next one.
Yep.
And when they go on the ridges, it depends on the altitude that we have determined previous to the task. In a day like today, that was just a day after the raft we had yesterday. The cloud base is rather low, which we were expecting today a cloud base of about 3,200 meters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we've already seen Alex's reporting now, 4,200, 4,300 meters.
Yes, that is at the north.
North, yeah.
Yes, but here close to the start, the cloud base is 3,200.
So we're just watching Thomas running along the eastern ridge, and now we can see where he is in relation to the others. He's quite a little bit higher than the other group, 500 meters higher, but he's quite a long way back. If you were to choose which glider to be in right now, which one would you want to be in the group on the left or with Thomas?
Always in this kind of task, you have two alternatives. Load to the ridges and getting speed there, or even getting high. If you get it with thermal, you get higher, and then you can speed up to the next one. So several times we have seen that a pilot that goes behind the others, but goes higher, finally, at the end, he gets first.
Okay, so we're expecting Thomas, I'll just see if I can borrow the mouse a minute, to travel along this ridge here to the east, and the others are going off to Lagunas, where they'll probably have to stop and climb.
Yes, well, then when they go directly straight forward to Lagunas, in Lagunas they will have to go up again, and to take probably 3,500 meters. And Thomas, that is getting higher at the Españoles first, he will go higher, and so we will see at the end, when they arrive to Lagunas, we will see what strategy was better. Yeah, going through Españoles normally is slower, is a slower way to do it. Okay. But unless you get a very good thermal at the beginning. If you get a very good thermal at the beginning, then going through Españoles can be faster.
Yeah, Thomas is now 20 kilometers behind the others, and he didn't really get a fantastic climb, but he's still sticking with it. So we'll see what pans out. Meanwhile, the main pack have, in fact, the first person just started to turn. Tilo is just trying one quick turn there. Looks like between 1 and 2 meters. I wonder whether that will be good enough and whether he moves on from there. The conversation here is that this climb here is normally very good.
At what altitude is Thomas now?
Thomas is, in terms of altitudes, I haven't got that on the screen yet. We'll just pop that up in a moment. He was at 2,700 meters the last time we looked, and the others were at 2,200. So we can now see the relative positions. Thomas on the right, and the main group on the left. And in the middle, we have Golf November Andres, 86 kilometers to run.
And at what altitude is now Thomas?
And Thomas is 2,750 meters, and Thomas Gostner 2,836.
Yes, they are not too high, but I say it's a good altitude anyway to go there. Yeah, I think that they will get there behind at that altitude. I don't think that they will win that.
We're just going to go back to the main group and have a look at them climbing. And we've had one request, could we have a look down 3 Victor's wing at the group underneath? So we'll try and give you that view. Looks like they've got a reasonable climb, 2.5, 3 meters. Tilo 3.5 meters now. I'm just changing the view for you.
Yeah, that's the thermal that is in the middle of the valley, the Lagunas Valley.
Can we look down the wing? On the end of the wing. Camera on the wing. Yeah. So we're just trying to get that view of down the wing, looking down inside the thermal for you.
Tilo is now it's in a very good thermal. That thermal normally it gets better once you are getting higher.
Yeah, here we go. That's the view we've been asked for. Pretty crowded, that thermal, by the look of it. Tilo now climbing 3 meters, is up to 2,600, nearly 2,700 meters. And that's nearly the same height that Thomas Gostner was. And Tilo now is 60 kilometers from the turn point, and Thomas is 76 kilometers from the turn point. So it's 15 kilometers behind, same altitude now. And still climbing, over 3.5 meters. This is a good one.
Yes, it is a good one. So from there, they probably will just cross the Aconcagua Valley without flying any thermal before they go to the north side of the Aconcagua River.
Looks like the thermal's just dropping off for Tilo. I wonder if he will leave first. See Yankee, Giorgio Galetto has left. Just keeping an eye on what's going on here. Giorgio Galetto's left now. Looks like Didier might be leaving. Everybody else staying with it. And Giorgio coming back. Perhaps he's moved on and found a better climb. Looks like 2.5, nearly 3 meters for Giorgio. Didier's seen him and is going to go and join him. Tilo's left now. So has John Gatfield. And India, Mario Kiesling, who's been quite quiet up till now. Didn't have a good day one. Was hoping for a better result. Yeah, that second thermal's not as good, and they're just recentering, trying to find a better call.
Yeah, they're leaving that thermal at 2.8. And so at Lagunas, they will probably get another good one to cross the Aconcagua River at 3.2 or 3.5.
Yeah, just being pointed out to me. Thank you, Mario. There's Thomas Gostner, unseen to us, a little further back and to the east, is now up at 3,190 meters. Good climb there, Thomas. You've got to make that work, hasn't he, really? He's got to stay there and make it work. You can't go back and try and join the others.
Yes.
Mind you, back with the other group, they're at 3,000 meters as well now.
Yeah, but he will need some more altitude to go straight forward to Lagunas. If he gets where he's flying now, 3.5 or 3.6, he will go straight forward.
Yeah, actually he's flying backwards at the moment. He's away from the turn point rather than towards it.
Do you think maybe he's found a little bit of wave there, and he knows he's made a mistake. He knows he's lost out a bit, And knowing Thomas, he's trying to do something completely different now to get back what he's lost.
Yes. I think that he already understood that at 3.2 he cannot go straight forward. But with that altitude, he will be able also to cross the valley where he is flying, to cross to the west side and go to a place we call the cathedrals. And probably we will see if he is going to do that or he is going to stay there trying to get more altitude.
Okay, while we watch Thomas here on the right-hand side of the track, the main group are still climbing. So we'll see if we can get a good view of that. And just coming to you now. Another very, very busy thermal. There's your friend Thomas in Zulu Zulu, just at the bottom of the screen, coming in to join the pack.
Yeah.
Just seeing who's at the top of that group. Looks like Mario Kisling at the top at 3,300 meters. And 3 Victor, that's Tilo, he's decided to move on. See who takes with him. Will Echo Juliet, which is Bostian, go with him? No, he's going to take one more turn. Oscar Bravo, which is Mark Tingey from New Zealand, he'll be enjoying today. He's in with everybody. Pushing on, chasing Tilo. Not quite as high, but a Quebec X-ray, that's Roman Mershek. He's decided to push on as well. So this group that are a little bit lower have decided they must have missed the bubble and they've pushed on.
Yes.
While the others stay and climb. So this will be interesting. So we'll end up with 2 groups now. One group that's moving on and the other group that is staying with a little bit more altitude. So they'll be able to watch what happens with the guys underneath.
Well, as I said, on that area, they have not yet arrived to Lagunas. And at Lagunas, they will probably have a very good thermal.
Yeah, so it's not a problem for the guys to have moved on.
No.
Meanwhile, Thomas still quite a long way back, now 400-500 meters higher than the others, but still got a long, long way to go. Just following the group now, everybody's leaving, all within 2 or 3 kilometers of each other, with the exception of Thomas Gostner. We've got one.
Thomas now is at 3.6, so he will be able now to go straight forward to pass through Lagunas and cross straight forward also the Aconcagua Valley.
One we've got that's a little bit unseen is Andres, who's at 3,200 meters in the middle of our screen. He's in the area to the right of the main group, running along another ridge here on the way down into Lagunas.
He's doing very well.
Yeah, it's just flying on his own, deciding to do his own thing. He's one of your pioneers here. He's been finding new routes for you and exploring more of the mountains locally.
Yes.
He says he's only a beginner. He's only been doing it for 31 years. He only has 4,000 hours in the mountains.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we might be able to persuade him to take us flying next week, actually, when the competition's over.
Yeah.
It looks like they're coming back together now. This group on the left-hand side are coming back right towards Lagunas, and but they're a little bit higher. So Tilo pushing on. They've got about 50 kilometers to run to the first turn point. We had a question about the task. Total length is 305 kilometers. The longest leg is the first leg, total of 97 kilometers up to the north, and then the task comes back about halfway, and then they go north again for a little bit, and then they go back down south. You can just see on the right hand side of the screen there. At the top is the first turn point, and then they come back down towards the right hand side of the screen to turn point 2, and from there they go back north again to turn point 3, crossing a valley, but very high mountains here, so they'll need to be something like 3,200, 3,400 meters to cross that.
I would say more than that, close to 4,000 meters in all that area, to be able to go from turn point 1 to turn point 2 and 3. It's a tricky area. The group that is going on the left is going in the lower side, and we have that Andres and Gosner, who are taking more altitude, but they're going more to the higher and going to the right side, to the east. You have to get to the turn point 1 with some good height. If not, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to climb up that area.
Or they can go round. We were talking earlier when we were planning, you could go round.
You can go around, but you to get into the turn point 3, it's a tricky area, and you have to have some altitude. You can see here that Andres on the right side of the screen is going to what we call the Mocoin East.
Yes,
that area.
He's 2 ridges over.
Yeah.
They're converging now, and the group on the left are lower, we think.
A bit lower, yes.
Yeah, a little bit lower.
We can see that the time that he has spent getting height in the laboratorio is more or less paying him that he's on the same altitude and the same distance of the turn point that the other group. We still have that Thomas Gosner is coming very high, and probably he's going to spend that time with that altitude, transforming that altitude in speed.
Yeah. With the leading group now just 40 kilometers from the first turn point, so they've done 57 odd kilometers of the first leg. Thomas is still quite some distance behind. He's 18, nearly 19 kilometers behind, but has that little bit of extra altitude, but not enough, I don't think, to convert into. He might catch them, but I don't think he'll lead them.
Yeah, I think that he's going to keep some altitude to get in the higher part of the ridge. This group is coming down in the lower part of the ridges. If you get in the ones that we have at the end of the screen there, you can see that that area is going to help him. Flying that ridges is very good.
Still pretty close together. We've got a group here of about 16, 17 gliders that are all within 1.5, 2 kilometers, and all pretty much the same altitude.
They're going to continue to the Piedras Blancas, which is going to come up on the list on the left side of the screen, and that's an area where they can climb before going into the turn point.
They've got to cross the valley first.
Before going to the turn point and crossing the valley.
This is the Aconcagua
valley?
No,
they already crossed the Aconcagua River.
Okay.
Piedras Blancas is just above Papa on the screen, that whitish area.
Oh, this is the white stones.
The white stones.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, the bench is just pointing out. We got. Looks like we got incoming from Alex. Hi, Alex. What can you tell us?
Hi. How are you guys doing?
How are you doing?
Well, fantastic. You saw that the guys took the fast route through the valley from El Cobre towards Piedras Blancas. We stayed high. We are circling with one other glider below us, and we're doing an average of 4 to 5 meters per second here. And what we can see is that these gliders flew underneath a very nice, strong-built cumulus with a base of 3,600 meters. That is just above the ridge of El Copin. So I guess they will do a cloud base, and then they will run north to the first turn point at El Morado. So we will stay high, and we will meet them when they come back to see what they will doing. It is a pretty fast day. It is a beautiful day. Very good sky, very good view, and high cloud base. And it's fun to fly. It's too bad that you guys can't be up here with us.
Thanks for that, Alex.
Yes, thank you indeed, Alex. That's great. So one of our experiments is working. Our eye in the sky. Alex is flying a Nimbus 4, just trying to stay out of the way, but giving us all the weather updates. As we see the main group on the lower slopes here, 2,500 meters. Thomas Gostner is still doing his own thing, a little bit higher, but a lot further back. He's now 3,000, just over 3,000 meters. His average speed is 89 kilometers an hour, where the others are still flying at about 115 kilometers an hour. So he's got a bit to make up.
It's really quite interesting that the main pack of gliders, the main group, haven't split up. Nobody, apart from Thomas, who I think made a mistake, I think he would rather be with the others. We've got really people with quite different experiences here. We've got some people who are very experienced at flying competitions and flying at the highest level, and we've got some people who are very experienced at mountains and not so experienced at competitions, and we've got some people who are not so experienced at either, and one or two guys who come from places where they don't fly so much competition. And it's really a question for them of sticking together, of watching and waiting and trying to be there towards the end of the game. Getting left behind now could be a big problem for them and very difficult for them to catch up. And we can see consistently we've got the same people leading at the front there. We've got the Sebastians and Mario and Tilo who consistently are prepared to push on and go ahead, and the others who are prepared just to sit and watch and wait. That tactic remains the same, they're going to stay pretty much together all the way to the turning point, I suspect.
And we're just watching Mario there, who's pushing on now, trying to bring the others with him. Looks like Roman Merchek's going to stick with him. Nice as he goes over that spine there, gets a good pull up, a couple of meters, and then rolls back out again. The rest of the group now chasing after them. Sebastian Carvalho there, not letting them get too far away. And Whiskey Golf, Werner Arman, Bostian in there, Krimmel, and Oscar Bravo. That's Mark Tingey, doing well today. Alpha Tango is the local hero, Rene Vidal, not wanting them to get away either. And Jinta Sub there in Alfa Romeo, and Thomas in Zulu Zulu. Fantastic scenery.
Certainly Mark has only ever flown in the New Zealand mountains in Marama in the South Island. He's not very experienced with this sort of flying, and you can imagine what's going through his mind. This is a sort of flying that you don't get to do very often, and he will be learning very quickly the right techniques, the right place to fly. Every place you fly in the mountains has a slightly different way of the convection operating. In the alpine region you get valley breeze and it's very predictable. In a place like New Zealand the wind tends to blow along the valleys and it's more turbulent, but you must know which corners to go round to get into the lift. Mark's learning that now, and he'll be very happy to sit and watch the other guys and let them do the work and make the decisions.
So this group deciding to go round rather than over. Yeah.
Yes, they're just arriving to the Copin. The name is through that lagoon is the upper side of the screen. And this is an area where they have to get some altitude before crossing the valley to the north to the turn point. That turn point is very tricky. It's in the middle of the valley. It's in a small hill, and it's a very turbulent and rough area. If you don't get very high, you might get into the what we call the lower system, which is very turbulent, and you don't get very good lift. You have to get in the upper part. So probably in this area of Copin, they should get some height before going across.
So Mario will be looking for that climb, that vital climb they need before they cross the valley to the turn point 1, the top of the screen. And we've got another group here that have decided to take a higher route. Didier in there, he's now at 3,300 meters, so he waited behind. The group that was pushed on following Mario are a lot lower. We've got John Gatfield in there, Thilo, and also Papa Lima, who is just trying to see Lucas from Poland. Yeah.
As we said before, Lucas is coming from behind.
It looks like they're just moving on from that thermal now. Lucas is pushing on with John Gatfield. Thilo staying there. Thilo and Didier just coming back in underneath. You see now Thomas is still quite a long way back.
If the Mario group don't climb in a moment and get a good climb, this could be a very interesting split. I suspect if they get 3 meters or something of that sort up, then they'll join up again. But if their climb is less than 2 meters, the Didier group could easily take the high route here and go straight over the top. And it could be a very interesting point in the race, this. We'll have to see if these guys get high enough to take the high route right across the top of the Piedra Blancas.
Yeah. Didier now climbing 3 meters in this group at the bottom of the screen. And the group at the top of the screen are trying to find a climb. Can't see anything just yet. John Gatfield having left the group at the bottom.
Yeah. We can see on the screen that Didier is climbing up to close to 5 meters per second. Once you get up there, and then you can get a different route, a higher route, to go to the north point, turn point.
So they'll go along this ridge to the right, in the middle of the screen?
That's right. That's right, yeah. I think that Didier is going into that ridge. That's right. He's going up there, keeping the altitude, keeping the speed, and that ridge is very good. And once you get at the end, then you go straight to the turn point.
They're now 500 or 600 meters above the others.
And we know, because we talked to Alex, that he's up at over 4,000 meters. So we know it's quite possible that if they get this altitude up there and they come up to 4,000 meters, it's a game changer. It's a game changer if you can go straight. So the next few moments are critical for Mario and his group, who've gone off to the left and got a little bit lower.
Yeah, Didier's now left that and moving on to the ridge, followed by Lucas. I'm pushing quite hard now.
Probably Thilo is behind, and on the right-hand side, we might see Thomas Gosner and Andres, who are also very high and coming up in the same direction.
It would be good to have a look at the group on the left and see if they've stopped to climb. Just going to try and bring you that picture.
Looks like some of them, they moved north.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. Yeah, they were all fishing around trying to find something. They've all stopped. Everybody's trying their own thermal. Sebastian Nagel's got 3.6 meters now. He's in the middle there. Who's he with? Mark Tingy, René Vidal's in there. Echo Juliet, that's Bostian. Oh, they're on just to the right-hand side. They've got their own thermal. And Roman Merchak in Quebec X-Ray. So these two groups here. One, Sebastian Nagel climbing at 4 meters. Sebastian Cava decided to push on. Now I wonder if that's going to be a mistake. Giorgio Galetto doing his own thing.
Yeah, we're going to run into a problem here, because if they push on low into this valley, we have a problem with data, because they might just lose a few. But the guys who are now really trying to climb, they've seen that they need to get the altitude to get across. So it could be a place where several people make a mistake. If Sebastian doesn't find a climb soon, he's got to go across the valley. He has not much choice about it.
Yeah, be good to see if we can just zoom out and find out what's happening with Didier and the group that went right. I'm just trying to bring you that picture. We hope you're enjoying the footage that we're sending you. If you would like to comment and give us some feedback, if you switch to the YouTube channel, you can give us some live feedback on the live chat channel. We're following that. Any technical questions are being answered by Angel Casada by text, and anything to do with the flying we'll try and answer on the commentary. Looks like Didier stopped to climb again. He's with John Gatfield. John had a little bit of a scare the other day. He got quite low and ended up going under some wires rather than over them. So he's made it his mantra to stay high and fly fast today. And he's in good company.
John and Didier looks like they might break the 4,000 foot here, and Thilo's decided this is a good tactic as well. So it's all to go for now. High altitude at this point to cross and come back, and I can't see the rates of climb of Sebastian Nagli, but I think that they're climbing okay on the west side of the mountain.
Now we can see that the race has split in about 3 different ways. Once there's the group of Mario, the other one is Sebastian Nagel. The other one is Papa, Sebastian Cava, and Rene, who are crossing the valley. Sometimes in the middle of this valley, you can find a thermal. Otherwise, you had to get to the resguardo, which is that ridge that we have where the Sebastian is arriving.
Yeah, Mario's found a climb, and Sebastian will have seen that, and he'll be pushing hard to get there. They know they need to be high at this turn point, so this was a big risk, wasn't it?
Yeah, the other day, that's what the area where Sebastian climbed before going into the turn point Rosin.
The others have been more conservative and staying high, and this other group have decided to push on.
Yeah, we can see that Thilo has a lot of height and is already heading to the turn point.
Yeah, Mario's climb has dropped off and he's pushed on. It looks like they're going to go round the turn point low, and they'll have to come back out and hopefully find something on the way back. In terms of competitors, 19 competitors from 12 countries, including, we were just asked a question, are there any Americans flying? Yeah, Tom Kelly's flying in 1-1. Unfortunately, he's not doing as well as the others just at the moment. He's 33 kilometers back.
The really exciting part of flying in a competition in sailplanes when racing with them is having the confidence to make the decision, because you've always got several options, and the options will carry different levels of risk. And Mario and Sebastian, I think, taking the higher risk option. It could pay, it could turn out, if they find a really good climb here, it could turn out to be a really good bet. But it's a high risk. If it doesn't pay, it's a disaster for them, because they really have got to find something to get up in order to cross the valley to come back. What height is the bottom of this valley, Mario?
Close to 1,000 meters. So they are about 1,200 meters above the river.
Yeah, the turn point is 1,700 meters.
Yeah. Now, from after the turn point, we're looking at the strategy to get into the turn point. But after the turn point, the whole trick is going to go back to where Thomas Gossner is on the screen, get a lot of height, go inside of the mountain. As we mentioned before, to get into the second level.
Yeah, by inside, you mean further east and higher up?
Further east, that's right.
Yep.
So that in the around the turn point, they will have to reach good thermals, move to the east.
We're just looking at the altitudes that both Thomas and Andres have got. Andres is now 4,400 meters, so he must have got into the wave that Alex was talking about. Although he's quite a long way back, he's at 69 kilometers, and it's a 97 kilometer leg. So he's 20 kilometers away from the turn point.
That's nearly 1,500 meters more than the guys at the turn. So if they flew straight now and they're not climbing so well, they'll be together. And that would be remarkable to catch up that sort of distance. I do think that we're looking at a problem here for the guys who turn low. You can see that Yankee Oscar and John Gatfield and Didier are coming in so much higher. They're coming in 2,000 feet or 600-700 meters higher at the turn, and that gives them a lot more options on the run out. And they've got Mario and Sebastian in front of them marking the thermals for them, so they can be confident to push on now. It looks like Sebastian's climbing. It shows that he's got 4 meters now.
Well, that's an area very tricky. We can see that Alpha Tango is flying one small ridge, and the other group where Sebastian Cava is the other group. You have to climb in the lower part to get into the higher part. Now, interesting, we can see that Sebastian is moving south. Just at the moment that Sulu is arriving.
So because Sebastian doesn't have the height, he can't go directly to 10.2. He's having to come round, which we were talking about earlier. Yeah, right across the valley now, and he'll try and climb on the north face of the valley.
He didn't climb. That wasn't a climb. It was just a gust and a pull up, and he's had to leave straight away. He's only 1,000, 1,200 meters above the valley floor. That doesn't give him a lot of options. The lower down the mountain you get, the gentler the slope. And the gentler the slope, the more horizontal flow in the air and the less vertical flow. So unless there's something that triggers it off, you won't find the strong lift and the good thermals as you move out onto the foot of the mountain. There will be lift, and you should be okay, but it's unlikely the lift will be really strong out there. And Thomas is really going now.
Yeah, Thomas up at 4,700 meters.
We can see that there are 3 gliders, Sebastian Nagel, René Vidal, and Tilo, who are climbing in a thermal which is a bit inside of the turn point. I don't know if they already marked the turn point, but if they're going to the turn point, and it looks like they already know where the thermal is, and they should come back to the same thermal one. That's the area. Now Didier is coming out to 3,400 meters after making the turn point, and should be able to go inside. Sebastian Nagel, it looks like he's heading south. I think that the strategies from now on are going to be interesting. We have a call.
Alex is going to give us an update. Hi Alex, how are you doing?
Hi, doing great. We're a little bit further south of the first turning point. We can see that.
Oh, looks like we've lost Alex. So.
Yes.
What's the intake? There is no issues with cloud base. The wind up here, we are at 4,100 meters. It's around 40 kilometers from the north. So as predicted, the meteorologist, it's quite strong. There are thermals all the way up. There are a few gliders that approach this very high. There's one glider approaching now the turn point number 1 with the fourth.
Yeah, it looks like that's breaking up. So we'll come back to Alex if we can get him. In the meantime, we've got nearly half the field round turn point 1, and they're making their decisions whether they carry on south around the bottom of the mountain, or whether to go back into the east side, climb.
That's right, yes. The next turn points are in the higher part of the mountain, so you have to go up. We can see here that Andres is arriving to that ridge at 4,000 meters. Thomas Gosner is going in the same way at 4,300 meters. And some of them are coming out from that turn point. We can see that Didier is coming out at 3,500. So once they get to the area of Copin, where Sebastian is arriving now, they should climb or continue, but somebody will have to get into a ridge to get the height to go to the next point.
Yes, I wonder what Sebastian's thinking. Maybe he knows something we don't.
Maybe he rides his luck occasionally, and occasionally it doesn't work out. But he'll find a climb. He'll find a climb, and he'll climb up okay. But whether the climb is good enough to close that 1,000 meter gap in time is doubtful. He could just be really lucky as he comes around the corner and pick up a really nice thermal, but I think the odds are against it. I think there's a reasonable chance that the group of guys with Didier and I think Alpha Tango's with them, Rene, that turned high, are going to come over the top of Sebastian in the next climb. So maybe it'll be interesting to see what he's thinking then, if he sees them come over the top.
So looking at Thomas at 4,200 meters, fat and happy, I would have said, that altitude, compared with Sebastian Cava down at 2,400 meters.
Yes, Sebastian Cava probably is going to go to the White Stones area, where they already know that there are good thermals, and that without altitude he can get there. And we can see that Tilo and Alpha Tango are going into the inside of the mountains to get some of the thermals there, and from there to climb up and to get to the second system. Thomas Gosner and is already flying the second system. Probably at this time he's flying with the headwind very strong, but once he turns after the turn point, he might be able to get into the inside of the mountains to the east, to the right side of the screen. It is interesting that we have people that are going very low and some others that are going very high.
René's come out heading more easterly, and he's a local. He should know the best route out, and he's come back over the top of the mountain. He's not really high, but he's high enough to cross onto the northwest face of the Piedra Blanca. And maybe he thinks that that's going to allow him to take a shorter run, a higher route around the mountain top.
Looks like Piedras Blanca is the area where they're going to go to climb back again. We can see that Sebastian Cava is already arriving to that area of white stones.
Still at 2,400 meters, so he'll be looking for a climb fairly shortly. And it'll be interesting to see if he gets a really good one, he can stay out in the lead.
That's
but if
right,
it's a
yes.
weak one, the others are just going to come piling in over the top.
It's always difficult when you get out in front like that, because there's a nervousness about what will happen when you've been flying with everybody else. But Sebastian's a cool dude. He probably won't be worried too much. He'll get annoyed if he doesn't get a good thermal, but I think he'll be confident that he will find the lift, he will find the good climb, and he will come back up again. the top pilots seem to have that ability to pull it out of nowhere just when they need it.
So we'll watch with interest to see what Seb does. Great pictures. We've got another good one coming for you, looking behind Sebastian, so you can see the route that he's taking and the view that he has out of the cockpit. Just pulling up now. Nice bit of lift on that spine on the corner there. Not stopping though, pushing on. You can now see the next turn point, the middle top of the screen, but there's quite a lot of terrain between him and the turn point. Good lift and good energy along this this ridge here.
Yeah, if this ridge were to continue all the way to the turning point, he'd be comfortable.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't. Unfortunately, at some stage, he has to leave it and cross the valley. And that's where the not having the altitude will really hurt. So really, he needs to get some altitude to cross the valley. But we can see he's regularly flying through lift. He's pulling up in good gusts. He's not really losing altitude. He's doing very well. And somewhere along here, he might just find a really nice, extra strong thermal that will pull him back into the game again.
This is the area of the white stones that we were talking, that they already pass over there, and they already know that they're good thermals. So I think that Sebastian is just arriving there. We're going to see in a few minutes probably he's going to turn and make a good recovery.
Meanwhile, the chasing group are much higher now, and looks like they've got good energy as they run along the top of the ridge that Sebastian was using. Just trying to see the altitudes. Looks like Thomas is round the turn and going back to the east at 3,800 meters. John Gatfield will be very happy at being at 3,800 meters.
We can see that on the upper part of the screen that Tilo is inside already. He moved east ahead of Thomas Gosner. In the middle of the valley, Alpha Tango was flying a good thermal. If he gets good there, he might be able to go through the Animita, and through the Animita going into the second system inside to the east side of the mountains and get a good race.
Looks like Sebastian Carr has just found a climb, just seen his altitude shoot up from 2,400 to 2,500 meters. Yeah, definitely looks like he's stopped to climb. Looks like a 4-meter climb for Sebastian, so that's what he was after. And the chasing pack a little bit higher, but further behind, coming around the top of the ridge.
So we should watch them. We should watch them
Yeah.
join Sebastian and see exactly what the situation is as they come overhead. They haven't been able to get over the top, these chaps. They've still had to come around the side.
The race is different for this group of the one that we have on the top of the screen. You can see that all of them over there are above 3,500 meters. And they're going to go in a parallel system. Either the ones are in the upper part, the high part of the mountain, or the ones are in the lower part.
Sure. Yeah, Sebastian's got a fantastic climb. If we believe the numbers that we're seeing, anywhere between 3 and 8 meters. Very rough.
Well, we can see his altimeter winding up as he's really climbing there, and they're coming together again. Whiskey Mike is interesting. He's going to come into this thermal just a little bit lower, and he was being cagey, and Sebastian's aggression, his confidence of pushing on, has brought him back up above Whiskey Mike. So he's done extremely well here. He's pulled this one right out of the hat.
It's an interesting group with Mario Kiesling in there, Werner Arman, and for Sierra, that's Fridolin from Switzerland. Oh, Fridolin. Yes, sorry, Brian was just saying to say a little bit more about him. He's a real mountain man. He ran a mountain climbing organisation in Switzerland. Had 20 people working for him at one time, mountain guides.
And he's still doing it?
And he's just sold the business, but he goes back and still does a bit.
Super fit.
Yeah. He says that he can see more mountains from a glider. He can visit more in one day that way. Bostian's joined this group.
Here in the area of the White Stones, we have two groups. The ones that are lower and the other ones that arrive higher. But it looks like they saw the other gliders and they're moving to the same thermal.
Yeah, they're all slowly coming back together again. Just changing to an altitude view for you. So Tom Kelly, some way back, but at 4,000 metres. Mark Tingey from New Zealand, 3,700 metres, but we can't see him where he is on our screen at the moment. But this group here, top of this group, looks like Didier House is going to be coming in at the top of this group. Just trying to work out where the others are for the moment. Didier just joining in now, 3 metres, 3 metres.
The other group is right there on the upper part of the screen. You can see the René, and probably in the upper part, higher, might be Thilo and Thomas Gosner and Andres.
Yeah, actually, Thilo's not. Thilo's down at 3,000 metres, where this group that are climbing now with Didier at the top are 3,500 metres.
That's right.
That's a great climb.
Yeah. And we can see Romans has made a break for it. Romans has made a break out in the front, and he's not low, he's going well, and he's just crossed the valley onto the next set of ridges there.
Yeah, 3,300 metres.
And John Gatfield will be really pleased with himself because he's come over the top, he's actually passed that group, and he'll meet up with them in the next thermal. So, go John.
Yeah, go John. Yeah. Bailey's Farm Gliding Club will be ecstatic. It's a very exclusive club. Well, I think it's 2 actually, 2 members. Yeah, yeah. You have to be invited to join. Just watching Roman heading towards this ridge. Whereabouts would you climb if you were here, Mario? For Roman,
I think that the group should move to what we call the Mocoin East, which is that area.
Just the area in the middle of the screen, just to the left of John Gatfield.
And from there, you go towards the next mountains to get and to reach the turn point. You can see now that the whole group is moving to Mocoin East.
Yes, nobody's got too far away. Roman out in front with 29 kilometres to go, and Didier leading this other group at 34 kilometres. So not much in it.
Yeah, but he's way out down.
So Didier is now at 3,500 metres, and Roman Merchek at 3,400. So only 100 metres in it, or just under. Yet Roman is 4 kilometres in front. John Gatfield now.
Roman was going this way. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, John Gatfield at 3,400 metres. In second place, go John.
Yeah, he will be trying to climb there. John will know he'll have a good feeling for what's happening, and he'll try to climb. I think Romans has decided that he's got to be aggressive on these days in order to get back in the points. That he wants to be on the podium at the end of this competition, and he's got to take his chances and trust his luck a little bit. And he chose to keep going there, and only time will tell. But if he pulls a good climb in a moment, it could well pay off for him. But I suspect this group with Didier and Lucas and Sebastian, they're going to stick together for a while now. I think we'll see this group fairly close to each other as we're coming after the second and third turning point.
So we're just watching to see the next move. Thought I just saw John Gatfield stop to take a turn. We'll check that in a second. Just trying to pick up where all the others are on the screen. Alex, you're back with us.
Hey, you can see that most of them are heading towards Saladillo. And we are positioned here east of Democoin at 3,500. And my guess is that they will actually come back and try to climb here east of Democoin and take the next turning point with a little bit higher approach. They will not take the route they took to fly to the first turn point. They're flying amazingly fast, and it's just impressive to see how they are pressing along. Some of them have flown the high route, as you have seen on the screen. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do after Saladillo when they have to fly back north. I guess a few will try to climb here behind east of Democoin, as I said, and fly over Aninitas to the next turn point.
That's fantastic, Alex. Thank you very much indeed.
Have you still got Cumulus there, Alex?
Yes, we're just at cloud base at 3,500 meters. It's cumulus on every ridge. Every ridge has nice markers. These are just marker cumulus, and you just fly underneath them, and it takes you 3.5, 5 meters per second up. So if they can fly back from Saladillo to the next ridge over the Aconcagua Valley at the ridge of what we call La Central, there is a nice marker on there. If they climb on that marker, they will fly the next ridge north, east of Democoin, and they will get the second marker, and they will have the altitude to cross over Animitas with 3,600 meters. That is what they need to cross at the higher ridge towards the turn point number 3.
That's great information. Thank you very much indeed, Alex. We'll give you a buzz a bit later on and catch you on the next leg.
Okay, perfect. I think we'll stay here for a while, and then we'll come back to Vitacura to see them land.
Thanks,
See you in a while. Bye-bye.
They all pass through the Mocoin East, and they're going towards that ridge that is in front of them. That area is very good. There is where they have to get a lot of height. I keep saying that because that's a very tricky area. These guys, they have managed to be lower, and from that area where they arrive in, they should go inside. As I mentioned before, that turn point it's in an area which is an area that there are a lot of descending instead of good ascending thermals.
So people mustn't think that because one area is good and there's a cumulus on it, that it's going to be guaranteed that you get a good climb. The energy in the air pulses, so it'll come up in bubbles of air, and you might get 4 or 5 meters of lift for a few moments, and if you're in it, you can take it up. The next competitor, the next pilot arrives underneath you, 100 meters lower, and he only gets 2 meters. And he has to wait for the next big bubble. So there's a little element of luck in striking it just at the right time. But even so, you need to be in the right place to get the good bubbles.
The group seems to have split in half here, one going left and the other going right. Is this altitude based, or are they deciding to do that to run the different ridges and spines?
Well,
here?
that's the altitude of that ridge. Either you get altitude there, or you just cross to the upper part of the screen where there is another good ridge, which is close to the turn point.
We've got a great view. Benji's setting up on silent wings. the system that we use here. We can see them now flying along the ridge with the turn point off in the distance. And just off to the right hand side of the screen you can see John Gatfield has found a climb, and the rest of the group are just pushed forward and they're going to rush towards him and join him. Just seeing if John can centre this one. No, he's moving on. Meanwhile, the group on the left-hand side still continuing, looking for another climb.
That's the other one. To cross over there.
And now we can see a little bit more of the terrain. And Mario's just pointing out to us that on the right-hand side of the turn point, that you can see turn point 2 there, there's a big hill, and that's the one that they'll be aiming towards, where they should get a good climb. Mario now left at 3,000 meters.
It's a breakaway.
So 2 schools of thought, one going left and one going right. John Gatfield still hanging on to his climb. The other group
Didier and
also
Roman,
climbing.
they moved south to that other ridge.
Yeah, John Gatfield climbing at 3 meters now, and Papa Lima, Lucas climbing at 3 meters. Werner Arman, but I can't see where he is, climbing
Close with,
sorry,
Papa.
up on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got Werner Arman with Sebastian Carver and Super Mario. We're just trying to keep an eye on 3 different groups now, seeing who does best. In altitude terms, it looks like Didier's group are just a fraction higher. John Gatfield taking enough height now, 3,600 meters, and pushing on. Mark Tingey and Jens Zub still climbing, haven't left yet. And I've got lots of people pointing at the screen, and we think that the route to the right of our picture is the better route. And we'll find out which is the best route, whether it's left or right, in a minute. Actually, we'll see which way they go.
Yeah, it seems they're being very obliging and showing us there are different ways to do it. And of course, when Mario went over the top, he probably saw cumulus on that side. And that cumulus may well have just drawn them across, but they don't seem to be doing that well with it. They've come up 300 meters or 400 meters, but it's not really a classic climb. But that altitude will become very important, because leaving at 100 meters more doesn't seem like very much, but arriving at 100 meters more is quite significant.
We're getting lots of feedback, which is great. If you want to join in the conversation, just click on the YouTube link and then log into the live chat. Any technical questions, Angela Casada is answering for us by text, and any flying questions we'll do our best to try and answer on the commentary. Looks like Mario's leaving now. He's had enough of that climb. Off in the distance, John Gatfield's crossing the valley, heading towards the snow-capped mountain there. Perhaps he's seen a cloud that the others haven't. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, we've got Roman Mercek, Didier, and Lucas. Looks like Gentis has also gone that way, and Mark Tingey's just following on.
I think that the best route is what Mario is doing, and also John, who is ahead. The route where Didier is, once you get into, to mark the point, the turn point, that valley which is on the screen from the bottom to the upper part, it has a very good and strong wind. Usually they bring you down very fast. So the best thing is the route that Mario is doing. You fly more protected and going into those ridges. Otherwise, Didier has to climb a lot of good height.
Yeah, I'm just getting some good comments here. Some of our live chat here is saying that could we, whilst the names of the mountains are really good, could we point at them using the mouse? And we'll do our best. Actually, there's a friend of mine, Tim Milner, back home. Hope it's not too cold where you are, Tim. It's nice and warm here. John Gatfield got a good climb now. And Werner Armand's seen that. Looks like Mario's going straight on though. Wonder why Mario's not taking that one.
He'll cut along the spine. I'm pretty sure he'll join them. He'll cut along the spine underneath them, and maybe he's on the upwind edge of the cloud. Maybe he thinks the next bubble's coming up from the face, and if he's just a little bit lower, he's going to try to pick it up. I know he's going to take the next spine. The next spine on. What's this valley called?
The valley we just crossed was Rio Aconcagua, and this one is the valley of Rio Blanco, where it's a mine. The turn point is exactly above one of the mine areas, copper mines.
It's an interesting area, this. There are a lot of volcanoes in Chile, 1,300 I understand.
Yes, a lot of them, yes.
And it's the volcanic activity that produces the minerals in the rocks, and why you have such good copper mines here.
Well, this is one of the good and very old copper mine. You can see these guys are flying this ridge. We saw on the screen a few minutes ago Sebastian Cava, which was going about 5 minutes per second down. He's also arriving to the point. I think that Mario and Werner are going to come back on the same route, marking that turn point and back in the same way. They know already where the turns are and where the thermals are.
Yeah, it looks like the left-hand side is paid. Would they say that's high or low? We just need to zoom out to see the other group to find out which one is higher, as we see Mario and Werner go through the turn point. They're more or less the same height, actually. If anything, the group on the left are a fraction higher than the group on the right. So first through the turn point looks like Werner and Mario, and we'll see whether they cross south or whether they come back on the sort of northeast side. No, they come back northeast. They like that route that they came along.
Well, I think that the ones that you already marked that turn point, Werner and Mario, are going to come back in the same route. And I have the feeling that the Didier and the others, they're going to mark the turn point and they're going to follow them.
Yeah, they'll be able to see them now. They'll be able to see them both visually and on the farm, and they'll realize that that was a better route, and so they'll pick it up on the way out, I'm sure. And what height is Sebastian at the moment? Because he's 3 kilometers behind now, and not sure if he's actually higher than Didier, or whether he's dropped down a little bit as well.
Yeah, Sebastian, 3,700 meters.
Yeah,
so he is a little higher.
So he's level with them, really.
Yeah.
Effectively, he's the same place.
Yeah. Just being a little bit more conservative.
Yes, he's coming back from the north, going to the turn point.
Yeah, we can see him at the top of the screen now, 3,800
That's right,
meters.
yes.
Yeah.
I should think he's had enough being out in front and down low for one day. He's decided that the really, really hot part of this race is going to be at the next turning point. And it's being in the game, it's being up there with the leaders that's going to make all the difference for the last part, because we're going to see a lot of the last 2 legs will be final glide.
I just have one question about whether John missed the turn point. We're pretty sure he went through it, as it's disappeared off our turn point list. So Werner and Mario out in front, closely followed by John Gatfield, Didier House, Ginter Zub from Lithuania, and now Lucas from Poland is through. And just going through the turn point now is Sebastian Carver and Krimmel from Germany.
There is Andres and Thomas. They're just arriving to that ridge where Mario is, but they're on the way to the turn point. They will have to climb there.
Yes, they're not very high, are they? 2,900 meters. They could do with another 300 or 400.
No, they will have to, unless they just follow the ridges and mark the turn point and come back to that area.
Now this next leg between turn point 2 and 3 is actually quite short. It's only 26 kilometers, but not straightforward. 2 ridges and a couple of valleys in between the 2 turn points, and they need altitude. We were talking about this earlier. They definitely need altitude to get across. In fact, we were talking about 2,600 to 3,000 meters, and they're over 3,000 meters, so they should be okay.
Yeah, that's right, yes. Now they're going to cross the Aconcagua River. Once they get there, where the Werner is, in that area, they're going to climb and then continue to the turn point that we were seeing on the screen.
This is quite an interesting valley. The river goes up to the mountain, and also
That's right.
This is the route you go to cross into Argentina.
To Argentina, that's where the road is, yes.
It's a fantastic road, actually. It's we would call that a Top Gear road. All the switchbacks.
That's right, yes. There are 32 turns going up. We can see on the screen that Thomas Gosner, which is flying to mark the turn point. He probably is flying with the tailwind, very, very good for him.
Yes, just looking at his ground speed, 230 kilometers an hour. He's up at just under 4,000 meters. But his average speed is 108 kilometers an hour, whereas Mario Kiesling is nearly 123 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, he will have to catch up.
This is quite interesting. Mario's gone straight on and Didier's gone left.
I think they waved hi to Thomas as he went back the other way.
I think Thomas probably waving back. He's enjoying the extra oxygen, I think.
Waving with one finger, maybe.
And looks like the group that across the valley.
Yeah, Mario and Werner are climbing, but Didier on the left hand, it's just moving ahead, probably going through the ridges into the turn point. The turn point is it's at the end of a river. If we see it from the top.
Yeah, we've just been asked a question about why is Thomas flying so much higher than everybody else? His strategy looks to be to stay very high in the second level and perhaps use wave rather than thermal and ridge.
Be careful, because once you turn the point 3 and your height, that's the end of your race. You go to the point, to the turn point 4, and from there you head south with height, and you just don't need to fly anything else.
We were talking earlier, trying to work out which way people would go and how they would fly, and we thought if they were around the 3,500 to 4,000 meter mark at turn point 3, they could get all the way back without turning.
That's right, yes. But we can see that there's a group which is turning. Didier continue on the left side of the screen, and he probably is going to go around all that ridge to get the turn point and back. But he doesn't have a good height to go all the way south to finish the race.
Looks like Didier might have just found a climb on the left-hand side, just off the edge of our picture. Mario on the right-hand side is climbing at nearly 4 meters. And looks like we got incoming from Alex. Alex, eye in the sky. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, well, perfect. We are just following. I think he is the leader. If you can tell me who that is, the guy that is flying towards turn point number 3 now.
Yeah, that's Didier House.
Okay, that is Didier House. We're flying far above him. He's pressing in quite low, I would say, but he must have understood that the level down there is working. It's definitely working up here. There is no issue with cloud base or bad visibility. They will be racing fast. There were some gliders that are quite high, and I think they will have it a little bit easier than the one that is pressing for turn point number 3 now. So it's interesting. What is the distance between the guy that is turning at number 3 now and the one that's following him?
Yeah, the group on the right-hand side that have got a very, very good climb. Looks like they'll stick with it. Nearly up at 4,000 meters now. They've got about 15 kilometers to run, whereas Didier is still pushing on at 3,000 meters.
Okay, yeah, we just saw him taking the turn point, and he's flying back out now, and he will have to find a little bit of lift, but definitely he will find it. It's a good day to fly, so it's fantastic. From our point, I think we can't tell you much more from here, so we'll be heading back home now.
Okay, have a great time. Thank you very much for the input.
Thank you very much to you guys. Say hello to everybody. Bye-bye. Talk to you.
Bye-bye.
So that's Alex, who's been flying in a Nimbus 4. We thought we'd try it today, see if we could get some input from somebody out on the race course. So that seems to work pretty well. So if you like it, tell us, and we'll do more of it. If you don't think it's a good idea, again tell us, and we'll change it, try something different. Meanwhile, this group is climbing really well, 4 meters or so. They're all stuck together, and if what we were talking about just before we spoke to Alex is correct, if they get enough height here, go into the turn point, it's just going to be a race home.
That's the end of the race, yes. They just have to go. I think that Mario already moved Sebastian Cava and Sebastian Nagel. They had to fly that ridge. They are about 4,000 meters.
Yeah,
go to the turn point, come back in the same direction, and continue south. Once they cross over the top of the mine, the copper mine, from there you have to push all the way as fast as you can.
Yeah, I'm getting lots of feedback saying that they like Alex's comments, and of course everybody wants a live camera feed. If we could possibly do it, we would do it. We're just looking for a bit more budget. Anyway, meanwhile, this group have left their climb and they're pushing on. Didier House is 6-7 kilometers in front, but a lot lower. So he's going to have to come back round the mountain and stop and climb, whereas this group, we think, might be able to get round the rest of the racetrack without another climb.
That's right, yes. They're flying now. Didier is 3,000 and Mario is 4,000. That's a lot of distance and speed.
Yeah, lots of Krumholz fans talking about Sebastian Nagel here. He was just lagging behind just a fraction, but he's managed to catch up with this group. He's really on it. Wants to.
I think he's done very, very, very well. The same thing for Sebastian Cava, that we saw him very low in the White Stones area and climbing very fast, and now he's just leading the group.
Didier's now round the turn point, but low. This other group are something like 500 meters, maybe 600 meters above him. And we think they won't need to climb again, but they'll just come back onto this ridge and then run along the top, just use the energy.
Didier's got a real battle on his hands now, because he's also flying Ventus 2. And if the altitude is sufficient at this turn for running the ridge and the final glide, he's going to get trounced on. He's toast. They're going to walk all over him, because they just cannot fly the same sort of speeds and the same performance as the Ventus 3 and the JS1 and the 29. But he's flying really, really well. He's pushing out and he's doing a great job. And it's wonderful to see somebody, as we saw Sebastian earlier, making their own decisions and flying their own race, trying to find a way of doing something different, trying to find a way of getting away from everybody else. Must be a great view for the Sebastian and for Mario, and not such a great view from Didier as they pass overhead like this.
I bet you Didier's not even looking up. He's just pushing straight forward.
He'll be focused on that mountain, he'll be focused on where the next clouds are and where the next lift is, and he'll be thinking to himself, how can I keep this, how can I keep ahead? But of course, if he's in the energy level, and he's pushing in the energy level, the altitude won't make such a big difference, because he'll be able to fly very fast.
Yeah, in fact, we've had a question about what is the influence of the wind here, and how important is it going to be today? I mean, the forecast was something like 15 to 20 knots north-northwest. Will they see that here along this ridge, or do you think the valley breeze will be along the ridge?
Well, at this level, the northwest wind is very important. They're flying now, this group, with a headwind. And once they turn, they're going to have a tailwind. And a tailwind in that area with a good ridge flight, I will give you a very, very good speed. They just arrived there about 220 kilometers an hour. And we're going to see on the way out, they're already reaching 250. They know that this is the last leg, and they just don't need to fly anything else. You can see now that the tailwind is pushing them, is helping them.
Even though they've only got 114 kilometers to run, pushing really fast. Distance to the next turn point, 53 kilometers for Didier, and Sebastian's only 5 kilometers behind, Sebastian Carver that is.
And nearly 1,000 meters higher. But they have to cross the valley, so there isn't going to be an energy line all the way. So Didier will probably need to either slow down in the valley breeze where he finds the dynamic lift, or he'll have to find a little climb. But it doesn't look like Sebastian and the Mario and Krummel will have to slow down. It looks like they'll be able to push right across and join the energy line, which takes them down to the next to last turning point.
So we'll watch and see how Didier solves this puzzle. We must thank Alfonso, our task setter, who at first sight the task looked really simple, but actually you've given us a fantastic puzzle. So thank you very much indeed.
We can see that here they're crossing to Andres, Gulf November, which is also going to the turn point. Didier is going out, and he will have to fly all those ridges.
Yeah, it looks like Didier's found a climb.
So from this point, Mario, there's two possibilities. You go more to the west on the lower ridges, but then you have to come back to the east to the turning point, or you can go higher and take the higher mountain on the left side, just to the west of the turning point 2, and then follow that higher mountain all the way down to the turning point. Which do you think is going to be the fastest route?
As we mentioned at the beginning, that whoever gets into the second system way up higher, that's what would be the idea, to get to the turn point 2, 3, and 4. Now we can see that this group is in the higher system. They're flying very fast, and they're just flying to cross the river and go straight to turn point number 4. And that's the best strategy for them. Didier, who is already climbing, probably is climbing to go into the same route. I don't think that anybody is going to go on the west side. It's just a waste of time at this moment.
We're just working out what will happen in this this final glide. We've got a real mix of gliders here. We've got a JS1 just out in front, followed by 2 Ventus 3s, then a 29, another 2 29s. So this will be interesting, the final glide, particularly for our friends in America who like to discuss which one's which.
Yeah, I would be very interested now to watch what Kummel does. He's going to, I think he's just a little bit lower than Sebastian, but I can't see his altitude at the moment. And we know that he's not going to want to get beaten. And I suspect his tactic now will be to stick with Sebastian, who is presumably expecting to be out in front in the glide, and wait and wait and wait. And then we'll see if the performance of the gliders is really different.
Yeah, we're just looking at the route that the guys will take, just followed by the mouse there. Looks like they'll cut left a little bit, back onto the track line, and then down to the next turn point 4.
Yeah, and the reason we have turn point 5 is because they will be much too high at 4, and they wouldn't be able to get down to take the last control point. So they need the extra turning point to make a long final glide to use up the altitude when they take the turn at 4.
Yep. So the story of the race so far has been pretty much leapfrogging each other all the way to the first turn point. But the big decision seemed to be halfway down the second leg, whether you turned left or right, and left looked like the way to go. And that's what's produced this this leading group.
It's great, Benj, to see the two panels on the bottom, both the same height, just a few meters difference, flying at the same speed between Sebastian and Kummel. We'll be able to monitor that all the way down this ridge. I think Didier now has fallen behind, and I think he's probably out of the game for being in the podium or in the top few places in this race.
So this group of 3 or 4, just over a kilometre apart. And John Gatfield turned right. I wonder why John's gone right. Oh, there's another group, actually, that have taken a different route. Is that a good idea, Mario?
Well, that's what it was mentioned, that going to the west side, they probably go to the Lagunas area, and from there trying to pass over the Españoles.
We're just going to see if we can get an altitude
I think
display
that
on the right hand side.
it's a good bet to go on the right side.
Presumably, Mario, there's a bit less risk, because if they take the right side, they can then cut into the turning point at the end. If they take the left side and they don't climb, they get stuck at the end of the valley.
Yeah, that's right. But with the altitude that they have, where Mario and Sebastian are, it's good enough to fly the ridges and to go through the end of that valley, and to be able to go and jump into the turn point number 4.
And we've got a climb going on here. It looks like Sebastian Carvard has decided that he needs a little bit more altitude to make it comfortable, and he's taken one turn. Not good enough. He's pushing on. So is everybody else.
One of the reasons because he is taking more altitude there is because going in the straight forward that they were following, they have to cross a gate, and that gate is at 3.7. So if don't get that altitude, they will have to go the same as the other group, more to the west.
So this is a trap. It's a blind trap we're watching here, and have they seen it? Yeah, well, watch what happens, folks. Are they going to go down the trap, or have they spotted it for themselves?
Yeah, looks like Sebastian tried another turn, wasn't good enough, moved on. Mario Kissling out in front with his countryman Sebastian Nagel just behind, and Werner Arman just being patient, watching, but he's a little bit lower, we think.
It's very impressive the way that Werner's been flying in the last few days, in the practice days, and he's flying on the first day. It's really cool, and he's was good in the last Grand Prix final, but he had a couple of poor days. But if he can maintain this sort of consistency, I think he could be up there with Kummel and with Sebastian at the end of the week.
looks like they've spotted the trap. And they're now coming back right. And looks like Mario's found a climb. Is it going to be any good? 4 meters on the first half of the turn.
That area where there are small lakes up in the mountains, it has a very good climb. They found it. They're going to get some fuel and to be able to pass the gate and not to get into the trap. What's going on with the other side, with the ones that went on the right side?
We'll have a quick look at that in a minute. We'll just see if these guys can establish their climb. They've got just under 88 kilometers to run, and those of you trying to do your sums, the altitudes are indeed Q and H, and we have a finish height of 850 meters, which is roughly about 160 meters above the airfield here, and the finish line is right in the center of the runway. Looks like Sebastian's got a good climb now, both Sebastians and Mario together.
Yeah, and Kummel has picked up 50 to 100 meters on him in this turn. He obviously hooked it straight away.
Yep.
And you can tell when you see the group come in and everybody do something very slightly different, that nobody feels as if it's in the right place. And they're all turning and watching. And as soon as one guy gets it, everybody locks into it. And I think in this one, Kummel got it first. And that's given him an extra 50 meters. Sounds like nothing. Sounds like nothing at all. But halfway down this final glide, 50 meters is going to really start to make a difference.
That's a gate. Yeah. That area that's been pointed is the area of the gate. So they have to be careful to pass that area. On the other hand, coming down from the south area, usually sometimes we have a south wind, and that gives you a descendant area when you pass and you get close to the gate. So you might be trapped there, and you have to be very careful.
What will be interesting is just to have a look at the group on the right, with John Gatfield out in front, but he's at 3,100 meters, whereas Mario Kissling now is at 4,100 meters, so 1,000 meters higher. But John and Roma Mercek and Gintis are a little bit further ahead. So distance now, John Gatfield with only 29 kilometers to run, and Mario is at 32 kilometers, so not very much in it, 3 kilometers and 900 meters. So we would say that the guys with the extra altitude would probably have it.
Yeah, but be careful, because that guys who are on the right side, they don't have to climb anymore. They just have to follow the ridges and just to cross some couple of gates with that altitude that's good enough, and continue to the turn point and back.
So
the hot money is on the left side, because if you look at the pilots in that left group, it's a little bit like a breakaway in the Tour de France. That little group are the fastest. They're the sprinters, and they've got the aggression and the confidence to push the final glide. The lower group with John, they're going to be a little bit more reticent, they're going to be a little bit slower, and they're not going to have the confidence to push it. They're almost certainly going to try and take a little bit more altitude before the turn, and that's going to lose them 5-6 kilometers at least.
So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. We had a couple of questions asking where Thomas is. Well, Thomas has been flying very high, trying to do the task almost in wave, but it hasn't worked out. He's now 20 kilometers behind the leaders. And Giorgio Galetto's been quite quiet today, hasn't he? He's 38 kilometers back. So currently the closest to the turn point is John Gatfield at just under 24 kilometers, with this group on the right hand side with Didier and Gintis and Roma Mercek and Lucas from Poland. But the group, we believe, has got more altitude to the left, just a fraction behind. They'll turn that extra altitude into speed. In fact, they're traveling 250 kilometers an hour, whereas John Gatfield's being a bit more conservative at 150.
So at the next turn, they've got 53 kilometers. I make it to run from the next turn, which is, they're going to need to be at 2,800, something like that.
You know, just looking at the distance between Sebastian on the left and Crimmel and Mario on the right-hand side, they're locked together. So a kilometre distance. Would you prefer to be on the left or the right here, Mario?
Here on the left.
So Sebastian Carver's taking the right
So
route.
Sebastian is taking the risk to go straight on that gate.
It's not much in it.
Just passing through there.
They are travelling quite fast now. Mario Keisling, they're at nearly 290 kilometres an hour, pushing very, very fast. Just around the kilometre mark difference.
It looks like the two German guys have got a slight advantage in altitude. Not much, but it doesn't take much. But I think that Sebastian's got a slight advantage in distance. So the two are going to come together very, very close. This is going to be quite an interesting last 50 kilometres.
So the two ridges here, the one on the right looks better to me. I don't know why. I think I'd prefer to be on the right hand side and just that little bit of extra height. But Sebastian seems to be very happy on the other side.
Well, the black line goes down there. He's following the black line. Maybe he can even see it. He's just stuck. The Sebastian is really good at trying to take the direct route. And his confidence and his ability allows him to get away with this a lot of the time. I think the other guys are going to have to cross over. They're going to have to cut left at some time before the end and pick up the top of that route now, because it's a straight run into the turn. There's no hazards now. They can just go for it, and it's a question of being the most efficient with your speed and your machine.
Yeah, we've got an estimate of goal arrival height, now a measure of energy, and it looks like out of this group here, Sebastian Nagel has a little bit more than Sebastian Carver, and perhaps he can turn that extra energy into distance and close that gap. It's come down from a kilometre to now 750 metres, so they've pulled in 250 metres. Will it be enough?
I think so, yes. Sebastian has about 100 meters of difference higher. You can see that they are flying close to 300 kilometers an hour. On the other hand, once you turn that point, you have to open to the west side to get the last turn point, and that's just only in speed.
We've got a ground speed you can see at the on the bottom of the screen. They're getting close to V&E actually.
Yeah.
Well, it's ground speed, but they've got a bit of a tailwind as well, haven't they?
And if the data is really accurate, the two Ventus 3s have got a slight edge in altitude, and that slight edge in altitude is going to close that kilometre gap. Taking this turn point is going to be critical. They're going to have to take its turning point right on the edge. Anybody who flies just a few hundred metres too far is going to lose whatever advantage he might have. And we'll be able to watch them go into this turn very, very, very fast. And they're going downwind very fast, so they'll start to turn before they get to the zone.
Yeah, and just confirmation that the group on the left with that extra altitude doing better than the group on the right. John Gatfield now in 5th place, where before he was leading. Just that route choice and a little bit more altitude meant that the route to the left was the way to go. So out in front, Sebastian
the group
Carver.
of the left, they crossed the gate, and the group of the right, they already crossed the gate. From now, all the pilots are just flying speed. There's no ridges to go through.
It's great because we saw a G29 and a Ventus 3 hammering it out together on the final glide, and now we're going to see a JS1 and a Ventus 3 hammering it out. This will give all those hot shots who claim their gliders better, some information on which they can base their arguments.
So 2 Ventus 3s hunting a JS1.
Yeah, but look who's driving the JS1.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you couldn't. This couldn't be better. Let's have a good look at this turn and watch how quickly they turn.
Well, they've got more than a 90-degree turn to do here, so that they could lose a lot of energy in this. You've got to be smooth through the turn.
So they're turning at 250 kilometers an hour, and they've got to pull up to do that. And we'll see. Certainly, Mario went much too far in the turn. But we'll see now, he must have lost a couple of 100 meters there. And I think that Kummel lost 100 meters or so. But now they're going to be really foot flat on the floor for the run home.
Not a lot in it. So just confirmation, first through the turn was Sebastian Carvar, and in second place is Sebastian Nagel, and third is Mario Kisling. Now just looking a little further back, and it looks like Werner Arman will be fourth round the turn.
Yeah.
Followed by Fridolin.
Those are the ones that went through the right side.
I must say that I do hope John can maintain his position. Because he said to me this morning, if he gets 1 point, he'll be so happy. And he has a chance today. He has a chance, but he's got to keep it running. He can't afford to take his eye off the ball. He can't afford to slow down. He's got to keep pushing to stay in the points in this race.
So John Gatfield there in 5th or 6th place by the look of it. And that will give him 3 points. So out in front, Sebastian maintaining his lead now of between 700 and 800 meters, but it is very, very close between Sebastian Nagel and Mario Kisling in 2 Ventus 3s, so there is nothing to choose between them really.
Also, this is the antenna wars. These guys, the 2 guys in front, have got the little antennas. They've got the special for this competition. Everybody has to have an external antenna mounted underneath the glider, and there was a recommended antenna, but some of the guys have managed to come up with a design that's a little bit smaller and a bit more streamlined. And 2 of those antennas we're seeing in this race here. So I wonder what Mario's doing now. What's going through his mind?
I don't know about his mind. What about his pulse rate? It's interesting, isn't it? Just maybe he's just trying to edge him out.
I think that they just open away from the heels so they can go faster. They don't need more lift.
Yeah, Sebastian Carver at 2,500 meters now, and Mario just under at 2,400. Just trying to look for where the next turn point is. Is that the one on the right hand side? Yep, on the right hand side. So they'll come over the top of this ridge and then turn right.
That's right. Yeah.
Werner Arman in his 29 trying to hang on to this group in front. Yeah, and Sebastian taking the turn now.
Yeah, Sebastian actually did a good job there. He probably saved several hundred meters of flying. And what's always amazing, if you're a competitive glider pilot, you don't think in terms of a few hundred meters here or there. But when you get into this situation, we can see that Sebastian's probably gained 50 meters in altitude. And that 50 meters in altitude is going to make all the difference between the place at the end of the race.
That's interesting. He's gained that little extra altitude coming right, but the gap between them has just closed right up. Yeah, now Mario's out in front, but he is lower, pushing very, very hard. Nearly 300 kilometers an hour. this will be really interesting. The next leg from the just trying to work out the 10.5, 22 kilometers to the finish from there. So they have another 90-degree turn to do here, just over 90 degrees. So again, it will be about how efficient they are in this turn.
So they need about 1,500 meters at the next turn. 1,500 meters. At this speed, they probably need more. But they would get in at 1,500 meters. If they've got 16 or 17, they can maintain this speed. Distance to goal, 30 kilometers to go. So the list on the right-hand side at the moment shows the distance back to the airfield. And the minimum altitude for finish is 850 meters. So all you clever guys out there who can work your maths quite well, they're probably making about 1 in 28, 1 in 30, something like that at these speeds. So that's for they need 1 kilometer of altitude, and they've got 1,800 meters, which is almost perfect. So we'll switch back in a minute to the height of the arrival height and see what it says.
So nothing in it as they go into the penultimate turn. Actually, the turn after that is just a gate they've got to go through. And it's 20 kilometers from here to the finish. Yeah, 90-degree turn here. They've got to go through. Got to be very efficient.
Oh, it's
yeah, so we've got an extra element in this. It's almost like the World Air Games, where you had to be efficient in your terms. And here they go into the turn. Wow, they are close together.
They could almost feel the breath down the neck of the other ones. And it looks like Sebastian's come out a fraction ahead. And same altitude. Look at that, 1661, 1668. Doesn't get much closer to the racing than this, folks. You'll never see this anywhere else apart from in gliding. No engines, just the energy of the air. 300 kilometers, 2 hours of racing, and there's 18 meters between them. We're going to see a finish here within seconds.
Well, that's Werner Arman going the other way into the turn. These guys are pulling away from him. There's the overhead view with the three locked together in the lead. In fourth place is Werner Arman. In fifth is Friedrich from Switzerland. And a little further back is John Gatfield from the UK. Almost speechless, actually. It's very difficult to keep talking. It's amazing just watching these three. Sebastian Nagel just a fraction out in front now.
That's a small gate that is very tricky. Probably we'll have to make the decision either to the left side of the turn point that we see or to the right side. And that depends on the south wind. The south wind brings you to the valley close to us and pull you down, and you have to be very careful.
Yeah, Sebastian Nagel's just getting the edge now. He's got a fraction more altitude and he's just pulled in front. What's amazing is that we have such an exciting finish. We have more than 1,000 people on YouTube. We've probably got a couple of thousand people on the website watching, and they're having such a good time because this is really the essence of our sport, being able to race like this in such wonderful machines, in such fantastic scenery.
And if there's anybody out there watching that knows of a sponsor that would like to associate with this kind of racing, we'd really like to know about it.
Give us some money and we can do this with live cameras as well. We've got the technology, we just don't have the money. And we've got the pilots, we've got the machines, and we've got the scenery.
And now we've got a split. Looks like
Yeah.
Sebastian's going right. Sebastian Carver's going right. Sebastian Nagel going left. Mario looks like he's going to favour left.
Yeah.
Nothing in it in terms of altitude. So this is all going to be down to route. There was nothing in it distance-wise.
Probably Sebastian Cava didn't have the altitude to go inside, and Sebastian Nagel, that difference must be 50 meters, and that was good enough for him.
They would have left a white mark on the top of that mountain if they'd been an inch or two lower.
This is amazing.
Now we have to be careful because now Sebastian Cava has a bit more altitude, and he's pushing. We have to come down to 3K and then to the final.
10 kilometers to run now.
Yeah, and with a 90-degree right-hand turn in this zone, Carver's on the inside. And on the inside of the track, he's going to have to be careful because he might have a little bit less distance, but Sebastian Nagel is going to turn right in front of him. And I'm sure these guys are absolutely aware of where they are, but it means that Sebastian Carver might just have to slow down a fraction and move behind him to make sure he doesn't put himself in a difficult situation.
So this is it, the run to the final turn. They've got a 90-degree turn in the barrel just at the top of the picture, and then a 3-kilometer run from there to the finish line. Don't forget the altitude they need to maintain is a minimum of 850 meters at the finish line.
And they cannot go below that altitude between the control point and the finish line. So there's no possibility for diving down and using any extra energy. You have to maintain a continuous descent, otherwise you get a penalty. If you go below 850 meters, you get a penalty. And this is a very useful rule to stop people diving underneath people to try and get ahead.
Absolutely locked together now. Sebastian just a fraction more height. And making this turn will be interesting. We've got to get it absolutely spot on. Sebastian Nagel now taking the turn first, followed by Mario. And just hot on their heels is Sebastian Carver in the JS1. Nice and smooth around there, 230 kilometers an hour.
I think we're looking at the order of finish now. Don't think there's anything Sebastian can do to get ahead now. These gliders look as if they're almost exactly the same. So from being absolutely together, we saw Sebastian take a slightly narrower run around the first ridge and a wider one around the last ridge, and that's made the difference.
They've got to be careful though. The altitude they need to cross here is 850 meters, and Sebastian Nagel there is just a fraction under. He's just pulling up just a fraction as he goes through the finish line. And the same for Mario Kissling, and Sebastian Carver managed to maintain his altitude all the way through.
Ooh,
so the referee's going to be looking at this.
It could come down to a penalty at the end.
Fantastic finish,
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic finish.
Wonderful
neck
finish.
and neck.
Yeah. But of course, the definitive altitude comes out of their pressure altitude in their IGC file, and it may be that it's slightly different and there isn't a penalty, but it did look really, really close.
Yeah.
So shall we pick up on the rest of the guys' bench? Where's everybody else?
So in fourth place is Werner Arman, just coming into the final turn point. These guys in front, they took 4 kilometers out of Werner. And a little bit further back from there, just trying to work our way
Werner
back.
is from the group that came through the right side.
Yeah.
The same thing about John.
And what happened to
Fridolin
Fridolin?
too, yeah.
Yeah, Fridolin there. Yep.
Yeah.
So it looks like Fridolin in 5th place and John Gatfield in 6th.
We're not suggesting that John isn't a brilliant pilot, but he's never flown at this level.
No.
He qualified in Spain, he's flown several Grand Prix, but he's never flown at this level with this sort of competition field. So he's going to be so happy.
Werner's 833 metres. He'll need to pull up.
Yeah, I think that's an indication that maybe there's a slight data shift there, and so we shall see when we get the flight files.
Yeah, something we're working on for next time to try and do real-time scoring. So Werner through the finish line in 4th place, and Fridolin looks like he's going to be 5th, just coming through the final checkpoint. Yeah, nice gentle turn through the final turn.
Yeah, if there's nobody directly behind you, there's no hurry. There's no extra prizes for winning by a minute or a second. You just got to be in front. It's a place scoring system, and that's all you need.
Not quite sure what Fridolin's doing there. He's just doing a quick turn.
Maybe he's just done a quick loop for celebrating, maybe. Yes.
Now, if we go back to the beginning of the race, we can see that the ones that went into the west route, lower route, got paid and are now coming up to the podium. And the other ones that went in the second system, higher route, like Thomas Gosner and Andres, they are way behind. That was an interesting bet at the beginning that they didn't pay to them.
And through the line there goes Fridolin in 5th place, and going back to John Gatfield in 6th, just through the final checkpoint. And a little bit further back from him will be Didier House and Ginter Zub. As we follow John in, he'll be so happy when he gets here.
Now we can see the other guys landing underneath. They'll be much lower, and that's the other reason for the minimum altitude, is to make sure the finishing gliders are well clear of the guys who are actually on approach for landing. It's quite a tight little airfield here in Viticura. There isn't a lot of space, and so they have to be really careful to get themselves in a good arrangement for the landing. They can't land two at the same time.
And just looking a bit further back down the field, Didier House there. Oh, chasing Roman Merchek. Roman has just popped up just in front. He'll be in 7th place and Didier in 8th. So who gets the final point? So 8th gets 9th place gets 1 point. So where's our local hero gone to? Rene. Still 35 kilometers to run. Leaks. Must have got stuck somewhere.
Yeah, and he's 35 kilometers off the turn point or the final gate. He's far behind.
Didier tried really hard, didn't he? He just made that mistake by going right into the second turn point.
And he's flying really well. He's decided that to make up the difference for the Ventus 2, he's got to push it a little bit and see if he can get an edge that way.
Yeah, those of you asking the question about what the delay is, we've managed to get it down to just 2 minutes, and that gives us enough time to collect as much data as possible to give you a better impression of what's going on in the 3D system here. As we see Roman Merchek going through the line, followed by Didier House in 8th place. Just looking back down the track, just getting a view now from Silent Wings. Looks like at the moment it's Ginter Zub in Alfa Romeo, but he's 960 meters, and very close on his heels is Bostian from Slovenia, pushing really hard. He's got a couple of 100 meters in hand, and that distance between them is just ticking down. I wonder if Gintis will have seen him on the flam behind. So this will be an exciting finish. This is for the final point, I believe. 9th place. Bostian pushing really, really hard. All the guys in Slovenia will be watching this. It's getting late there.
They cannot go below 850.
And can't quite make it up. Can't quite make it up. He's trying really, really hard. And Gintis through the line, and just 250 meters behind is Bostian. That was close. That was close. And the problem is, for poor old Bostian, that's 0 points.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't matter how hard you try, everybody behind has got 0 points as well. Mark Tingey from New Zealand, whilst he's back in 11th place, he'll be very happy with that. He wasn't too far away from the boys in front. He's come a long way in just 2 years. He'll take something back away from this race.
Lucas is way behind. We thought that he was going to catch up and be able to be pushing, but he was left behind.
Yeah, so on the right-hand side, we've got the overall scores without penalties, but we'll be checking each of the flight recorders in each of the aircraft, and that'll go to the referee here, Roland Stuck from France, before we get the final results. But as soon as we got them, we'll publish them on the website. I hope you've enjoyed the racing. We'll leave the screen on to follow the remaining competitors to go across the line, and we're going to go and get a beer, I think.
I think so.
The final speed, 144.9 kilometers an hour, not too shabby. So if you've enjoyed the coverage, please let us know. If there's anything you think we could improve on, again, let us know. If we've done a great job, then please tell others. We've had over 1,200 people watching the finish, which was great, on the YouTube stream, and something like another couple of thousand watching through the website. So we're very pleased with that. And come back and join us tomorrow. We aim to start at the same time, around 3 o'clock local time, so that's 1700, I believe. No, 1800, something like that. Anyway, you can work it out.
1900.
Yeah, 1900.
Yeah,
1900, yeah, in Europe.
Europe, yes.
Yep. And see you tomorrow.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Mario.
Bye-bye.
Yes.